Okay, welcome everybody to this evening's AUDJPY Securities webinar. My name is Duncan Cooper. Tonight's webinar is Forex Trading Live Market Analysis. Just to give you a heads up, tomorrow evening, that will be my last webinar this year, until we get into the new year. We're going through the trade setup, limit order, at a support or resistance zone. Okay, so I've gone through how to define support and resistance zones. So we're going to be looking at how we can trade from those levels in the markets. That will be tomorrow evening's topic at 8 p.m. Sydney time. Just register your interest at the webinar page if you want to join me. Okay, for this evening, if everybody can read through the disclaimer, if you're on our YouTube live stream, I can't see the chat, but you're more than welcome to watch. If you want to join us in the webinar, I've given you a link there to join us. For those in the webinar, you can use the chat box or the Q&A box to talk to me. Right, let's move along now. For those that don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trade Mentor here at AUDJPY Securities. And I'm a full-time Forex trader. We've been trading in the market now for almost 20 years, mentoring for more than 10. If you want to contact me, my email is on screen there, duncan.cooper@acy.com. You can connect with me through the week at our website, acy.com. Go to the Market News tab. At AUDJPY Securities Australia on YouTube. And if you want to connect with me personally, my Linktree page is there. I'll get my links on that page. And if you want to get access to the chart, layouts, and templates I'm using MT4, then just contact Nathan Bray's emails on screen. And for those in the webinar, I'll put his details in the chat. He'll only be too happy to set you up, have a chat. There we go. All right, so we are maybe starting to slow down in the market. Christmas is coming up very shortly. I've noticed that some of the ranges of the pairs are getting a little bit tighter, getting more range bound. And that's normal. So as people are going on holiday, there's less trading going on, market gets more range bound. We do have some high impacting news items coming out for the week that can still affect potentially the market, but outside of those events, I would expect things to get a bit more range bound unless something comes out to really stimulate the market. Now, let's have a look at the news now for tonight. Just go through the red items. Time shown on my time, Queensland time. So I just want to refresh this. All right, so next red item coming up for Canada is CPI. Month on month, medium CPI year on year, trim CPI year on year. That's at 11:30 p.m. And we have US retail sales, core retail sales coming out as well at that time. So it's going to be volatile at 11:30 for US and Canada. Canadian crosses for sure, and potentially US crosses. All right, and all the currency pairs when we're talking about a US news event, but be aware there, 11:30 p.m. 5 p.m. tomorrow for the pound, we have CPI data. Expecting a slight rise there. That's potentially bullish for the pound. 1:30 in the morning, moving into Thursday. That's a minor item, crude oil inventories, but then getting into 5 a.m. in the morning, US federal funds rate, expecting 25 basis point cut. FOMC economic projections, statements, okay, and then getting at 5:30, we have the press conference. Markets, in all probability, factoring in already the 25 basis point cut, but it will be what gets said at the press conference, as I'm sure there's some commentary about what we should be looking for in the new year. 7:45 then, moving on from there, that period will be potentially highly volatile. We have GDP QQ for the New Zealand. And then on Thursday, this is usually 1:30 my time, BOJ policy rate, monetary policy statement, press conference, monetary policy summary. But that's for the pound. So just retract BOJ policy rate, monetary policy statement, and the press conference from the BOJ. Usually 1:30. Sometimes some of that comes out a little bit earlier, but it's kind of that window, okay? Often can be very volatile if they're making a bit of a policy shift. 10 p.m. then later in the evening, we have the monetary policy summary, MPC official bank rate votes, and the official bank rate for the pound, UK. Not expecting a change, and of course, the day before we have the CPI data coming out. So some high eventful news from the UK. 7:30 US final GDP QQ. Then getting into Friday, 5 p.m. in the afternoon, pound UK retail sales, 11:30 p.m. Canada core retail sales, and then the US core PC price index. So lots of red items coming out, big ones for the US there with the interest rate decision and then the statement coming out, and a few big ones there for the GBP. Okay, so be aware what's coming out. You might find the market's getting range bounds, but of course, market can get volatile when these things get released. And as well, if the market is thin with orders, price might spike a little bit more. So be aware that these are the conditions that we might be dealing with. And of course, when we get into next week, it's going to get even slower potentially with a few holidays over Christmas. All right, so let's get to the charts now. Market did. It's a big question at the moment. Just want to go to the weekly chart. Came up, had a rally last week. After a 2-week decline, 1-week rally, came back to retest this top, that weekly top there. Are we holding at the top of the range to trade down? That's what I've been talking about over the last 3 weeks. I don't know. Of course, we never know when we trade whether we're going to be right or not. You have to make a decision at some point. Do you want to trade what you think you're seeing? So are we at the top of the range here? We have come up to retest late last week. So it would be a Thursday, Friday, bit of railroad tracks up here at 62% overlap with that weekly high over here. So are we going to be starting to see sell off, false break of the highs, rally retest of the high, down? Are we going to see that kind of price action maybe unfold on the US dollar? We'll have to wait and see. Of course, if we break above the high this week, that will be off the table, and we're continuing up. All right, S&P 500, a little bit flat up here at the moment. Really hasn't pulled back to my preferred area of support down here at 58.81, and may not get there at all. But I'm not going to buy at the top of the market. I would need to see a dip. So for me, it would need to come down to a logical area, and that's my logical area at the moment, down at the approximate 58.81 area, the 79% fib retracement there of that range. Euro dollar, I'm just monitoring the fact that we've had this imbalance up here that hasn't been filled, and we've had this big drop. Then we've rallied to that point, and then we've come down, and this 104.48 level, it's a monthly low over here. We've come back down to test it last week, maybe creating a little bit of a double bottom here. So it's really the inverse look of the dollar index. Are we going to be holding in this area? We just take it to, and we do have a 62% retracement there of that low to high range. That's the area that we're false breaking. We false broke, and then we came above this week, and the last 2 weeks, the lows of those 2 weeks have been coming in at this level. So that would be the key level for me this week to watch. Of course, FOMC statement coming out is at some point this week, do we retest that area? Do we hold? Because if we stab below and come back above, this could be where we are bottoming out for a long-term rally back up. Of course, at the moment, we're quite clearly holding at this low. The last 3 weeks have wanted to move back above. Any testing of that area has been holding. So, and Friday we came down into the area and came back up. We're down at the moment today. Just want to look at the 4-hour charts, and this is the range of you want to be monitoring at the moment. We are higher bottom, higher top. Just is rather range bound with the quietness coming into the market. And I would, on all the ranges that you're starting to see, so if we're starting to see maybe a bit of an uptrend on the day chart at the moment, barely an uptrend, but maybe just, I would start to have the philosophy that the market's going to be range bound. You're going to see price coming back to 79% retracements of the previous day's range, or of the most immediate range that you can draw around the 4-hour chart. I would start to look at the 79% areas to the 100% areas You might see a lot of price action just coming down, breaking the low the day before, and then coming all the way back up. All right. Could see a lot of that kind of price action on both sides of the market. There was yesterday's high, previous day's high here. We got above that just in Asia, and then we've come all the way back down. So we're going to see lots of false breaks of highs and lows of the day trading before through this quiet period. All right, so if you have an overall bias, then look to the outskirts in line with your overall bias. All right, so this would be the hour watch. Do I see my potential setup that I would like to trade maybe back to the upside? Euro yen. Now, on the weekly scale, I said this maybe now 2 weeks ago. Were we getting support at the 79% area? High bottom, higher top. And I'm still on the viewpoint that maybe we're now putting in a higher bottom here to move up. Of course, we've got the budget statement coming out Thursday. Day chart, we've had some minor lows come in. This is really in an uptrend in terms of the minor lows starting to form. There's swings are kind of probably went down like so. So this is due at least a pullback to continue up. So I would look to the 4-hour chart, find out where last week's low is, draw a fib in from last week's low up to the most immediate high, and monitor this coming back down to the 6279% zone of last week's trading. You can see there's a 4-hour dip here and here. So I would expect potentially support to come in that zone if we got down there, and expect the market to be maybe range bound. So look to get low down within the range of last week. That's what I would be doing. Euro pound. All right. Getting a lot of support from the monthly area of support that I've been saying, these highs to the left. More recently, I've just been drawing in the weekly, this weekly low just here, but you can see we false broke it last week, big rejection back up, and we're coming back down, and in all probability, we're just coming back down now. We have a up to maybe a higher top here. We're coming, this is the range of last week, coming back down to the weekly support at 82.59. And of the range of last week, well, there's the range of last week, and then a fresh high just. Right at 62% level, we've also got last month's low in there. So that level there at 82.59 is a primary area of support at the moment. Last month's low. Weekly support. Day chart trend turned up last week. Is that the pullback before we further now have another run up? Of course, the euro pound this week is going to be affected by the UK pound CPI figures and interest rate decision, okay? All right, pound dollar. Now, pound dollar on the monthly chart, as we're heading into a new year soon, the monthly trend remains up. Higher bottom, higher top, we've had a 79% retracement of that range. We've come down to 79% level, tagged it twice on 2 weeks here, then we moved back above. We've moved back above this area here. These 2 weekly lows here that were above, back above. This area here at 126.12 and 126.65. Rather range bound, similar to price actions to what we've been seeing on the euro dollar. We pull back to a potential double bottom kind of support area here, sitting on this weekly area of support over here to the left. In the case of the euro dollar, it's the monthly support. And are we getting support here to continue up? Are we, potentially getting support here at 79% retracement of the monthly range? Getting further support here. I would look for an intraday dip to try to trade this up. It's starting to get back above here. back above here that we broke below. Okay, so there is on this time frame, not as high up as the one on the euro dollar, but there is an imbalance on this candle here. And on a lower time frame, there's probably maybe an imbalance in this candle here. So I would be potentially looking to see if this can come back up into this kind of area here as we enter new year. There is also an imbalance all the way up here. All right. With the monthly trend being up, and if we finish with a potential monthly candle up this month, as we head to the new year, then I would maybe suggest we are going to have further months up, and we're going to be coming back up to fill this imbalance. Can we come up to fill this imbalance? Strong area of resistance up here about the 130 level. All right, so for our chart, there's a minor 4-hour bottom just here that we've created. So just turn this a little bit to the upside on the 4-hour. Best time to have traded today would have been coming back down to that 126.65 level, the weekly area over there on the left. See, that comes straight down. Then we did have the news event. Climate count change, I think it was. We could look at this intraday range at the moment. If we could get back down to this zone, this zone would be a great zone to watch for the buyers to come back into if we can pull back through the day. So that's 126.74 down to 126.65. Price might want to come back and fill the imbalance on that news candle that came out earlier in the day. All right, but I'd have a focus on, if you're a seller, 127 at the moment, it's a little bit tricky. That's where the sellers are. But looking at the monthly structure, we're kind of up. 79% retracement, starting to move back above weekly support areas, old weekly support areas that were. And I would be logically looking at trying to structure along on a dip at the moment, unless after the FMC gets released on early Thursday morning, unless that changes the perspective, I would still be looking for the opportunity to buy a dip. Pound yen, like the euro yen I was discussing just before, weekly trading high bottom, higher top. We almost had a 79% retracement, and now I'm expecting that we are continuing to this top and moving up towards 127 extension at 204.14. Unless the BOJ comes out with some different fundamental picture this week. So the day trend here is up. There's a little high bottom area here, another high bottom just here. I would be just focusing on looking to the 4-hour. Last here on the daily, there's a low just there. That's the most immediate range to, I think, watch from that little weekly dip down. Sorry, that little daily dip down. And 79% level overlaps with an area of support at 193.47. So just where it is right now, you're trading into a old area of resistance here. So not where you want to be trading for a long at the moment. Trend may well be up, but that's straight into resistance. So you want to see a retracement. Just looking down the 15. If you're prepared to engage a little bit higher up here, last week's high we've moved above, and it's got the central pivot point here. So last week's high, 194.99, central pivot point at 195. That could be an area of support today, especially if the pound still wants to move up. But me being me, I always like to have a nice, healthy correction. So potentially I wouldn't be looking at that level personally, but if you saw your setup at that level, then it's up to you. I would look more to this range and look for a pullback to support in the 79% area down here. 193.50 down there. Aussie yen, this was how I structured it on Tuesday, and we came into the 79% level down there, and we've been moving up. Can't go back in time, but that's what we discussed last week. Now, to the weekly, just to give you a picture, it's a higher bottom, higher top, putting in a further higher bottom here potentially. Got to be mindful of a monthly area of resistance here, 98.58. So we could just, of course, just move above that area, but I don't want to trade into it. So be mindful of 98.58. And I don't want to look at last week's range. Last week's low, it's just there, so I'll take it down to the final low. I'd go across that range. And there's a lovely spike here. So that's telling you just in this zone there, that's where the buyers are. We came down to fill the imbalance last week at the 79% level. And there's another 79% level there. So down at 96.11. If we got down there this week, that's where I would look for the opportunity to get long. All right. You can see to the left where support has been coming in. As we're coming down here, we started making these lows here. That one came in there opposite these three last week. So, you know, if we were to come down into this area, you've got all this support through here. That would be the optimum area to start to structure along. Okay. Aussie. Now, Aussie and New Zealand they're a little bit different to the euro dollar and the pound dollar. They're kind of keep tickling the low of their moves, whereas, of course, the euro dollar and the pound dollar are a little bit more buoyant. But it's worth noting on the Aussie dollar and New Zealand dollar, we're at very low levels. So if we go to weekly, you know, there's two lows here, which we're just trading around. 63.62. This low here is at 63.48. We're trading at 45. It would surprise me very much if we just keep moving down through Christmas. More, I would potentially expect that we will come back up the range. Of course, the market's always going to be right. We've got another area of support over here at 62.85, which is 60 pips away. But be aware that for the this year's nearly finished. This was December 22, so 23, 24. We've been very range bound. All right. So as we're at the bottom area of that range that we've been forming, that to me isn't where I want to sell. If I can see a logical setup to buy, it's more of a buy area at the moment for me, not a sell area. Now the day trend is down. Tried to come up back up last week, and see 4 hours very range bound here, just holding, and it's like just holding the downtrend. All right. So if I was to see like a breakup like that this week, do we come back down once more to retest support to move up? That's the kind of price action I would look at. For me, I just feel it's too low down here to think about right now. If you sold it higher up, great, you can just be holding your position. But I think getting in right now to the short side, you're very low in the range. Okay. Could most definitely watch through the Christmas period, depending on what happens with price action, watching 63 maybe for support, but at least bounce back up. We're very low down. All right. So you're not going to catch me selling down in this area. You might catch me buying if I see a setup out, if I see a turnaround. New Zealand yen. This is how I structured it last Tuesday. Watch the 79% level here. Came in, rejected exactly like the Aussie yen. All these lows to the left for support. All right, drag the fib up now to the high of the new week. Same as I was just saying on the Aussie. Look down. Got two 79% levels here. One of this range and one of the weekly range to the weekly. Higher bottom, higher top, came to the 79% area. Are we from that 79% area? Let me just get rid of that small fib. This 79% level. Higher bottom, higher top, pull back. I'm expecting that at the moment. Then from the 79% support of the weekly range last week, are we going to see a further dip down of that range? There's two 79% levels there at 87.59 down at 87.59 to 87.50. All right, going to be patient to see if price can get down there, but are we bottoming out on the weekly chart at the 79% level? And if we are, and you can get in down like very low levels, that may offer you a very acceptable risk reward trade to the upside. Right, New Zealand dollar. So this is reversing back up. What's that Aussie doing on the 15? It's probably, yeah, as I said, on the euro, watch for a break of yesterday's low and then move back up. That's yesterday's low. This was the lower area. This is a low area of Friday. See yesterday how we traded below, came back up. This is a low area of yesterday. See how we've went below, and now we're maybe going to trade back up because there's not enough sellers to knock it down through there another 50 pips in the quiet market. And as well, we're at very low levels. All right, so I would be watching for, if I have an obvious direction where I might want to trade it because maybe we're at very low levels. Potentially here with folks breaking yesterday's low to come back up the range. All right, back to New Zealand. So as I said, that's yesterday. You can see where folks breaking, like the Aussie. Now let's just go to the weekly chart. We are asking, can we hold below 57.73 or not? A bit like up here. For 2 weeks, it was asking, are we going to go above this high and go further higher? You may all recall I sold it up here. So this is the complete inverse of what was going on there. You never know if it's going to hold. You have to make a decision, manage your risk. Do I want to trade there to potentially trade all the way back up? All right. If you want to trade from here all the way back up, you have to make a decision to buy. Put your stop in, and then you're going to see if the market's going to hold. All right. That's what I did over here. I made a decision to sell. The market's going to either hold to move down or it's not. All right. So at the moment, we're fractioning below that weekly area, 57.73. Yes, the weekly trend's down. It's going to be down when we get down support. And the day trend is down too. Now, here's the 4-hour. We're not able to, at the moment, actually trade below last week's low. We did just on the Aussie. But here we were in a 4-hour uptrend. Maybe we're just false breaking yesterday's low here. Can't break last week's low. I would be watching that on the 50-minute chart for your setup to get long. All right, that's last week's low. That's moved up to Monday's high. There's the 79% level. So buying here at that 79% level, 57.61. You don't need to risk more than 15 pips on that. You can say if we break last week's low, I'm out. And potentially you could just be risking 15 pips to trade all the way back up the major range. Okay. You have to risk something if you want to have a go at trading from the bottom of the range to the top of the range. Right now, dollar Canadian keeps powering on and on. I have said on the monthly scale that we're now beyond the 127 extension of this swing up, pullback. So we may well be coming up to test these highs, maybe, as we head to the new year, into the new year. It's difficult to be a buyer, though, if you're not already bought, because it's obvious here that we're high up in the range. We're well overextended on the monthly move at the moment. Weekly chart is very overextended. And for me, the reversal we got here at 62% area as we started to move up was a time to get in. And this is the time to either keep holding or get out. I'm not seeing a reason to go short, but I'm not going to buy up there. It's so high up. So I just have to, for me at the moment, there's nothing to do on the Canadian dollar. You're either long already or you've missed the opportunity really to get long. Sure, you can be trading the smaller swings. The 4-hour swings are here. You could look for a pullback within the current 4-hour range to be a buyer. Of course, we've got data coming out, CPI data coming out from the Canadian, I believe it is tonight. So if that came in very poorly, that would be a US dollar strength. If it came in very strong, that would be Canadian strength. So figures kind of look very much in the band of between 2 and 3%. So as long as nothing really comes out high, then potentially nothing too much is going to stop that upward movement at the moment, but it is very high up, and I would at least need to see a dip to start to look to engage to the long side. So we can all see where the trend is. It's just very high up there at the moment. Would be nice to maybe just see a pullback to, let's go to the month, back to my daily, to at least this area here. 141.05, so approximately 141 level. If you're going back down to 141 where we had a high here, there's another high here and a false break, all that was resistance would become support on a pullback. So you just have to pick your areas where you want to start to engage. So at the moment, it's nearly 200 pips above that area. So I would need to see a pullback to be able to really buy. But you could look to just the 4-hour chart if you're prepared to buy a pullback within the small 4-hour range. Dollar franc powering on to a new high. So the weekly trend here is up, and the monthly is a little bit mixed. It's higher bottom, lower top. But weekly and day trends are up. All right, weekly's up, daily's up. Just putting a higher bottom just in this area here. So I would need to see at least a pullback within the 4-hour range. I'd probably want to, that range really doesn't work for me because if that pulls back at the moment, it's going to false break this top. So what I would need to see if I am thinking about getting long, I would need to see now this top, which is last month's high, clearly broken, and then a pullback to that top. So that would be by buying level. If we move through, a good move through, that then becomes the level to watch for the buyers. If we today, for example, completely false break this monthly high and have a very negative close, so we finished maybe down here, then I'd want to see a retracement sell down. So at the moment, the big question for today is, are we moving quite clearly through, well beyond that high, and then do we pull back to it, or do we false break? And then for a reversal back down. Okay. Dollar yen. It's just at resistance at the moment from this weekly area here. Now we've had on the monthly scale, we actually went down to a lower bottom just, then we've rallied within a few pips of the 79% retracement. So the big question is, what does the BOJ do this week? And the big question is, are we going to be seeing moving into the new year a monthly lower top form? We start to see a monthly lower top form from that just lower bottom. That all the market that knows how to do technical analysis is going to see that we have a lower top, lower bottom on the monthly chart. after, of course, the big bull market that we've seen. So then that may well then be a big trigger turning phase on the dollar yen. And even though I've been showing you that we have a bullish kind of weekly trend on the other yen pairs, we get a significant shift on the monthly chart in the early phase of next year. That could well fall through to all the yen pairs. So we'll have to, see what happens as Trump comes in, and is there any new news on the interest rate front from the US and the Bank of Japan. But there is the potential there. There's a monthly rejection there. We've had a month down this month. And once we've held at that 79% level, we've come down, we've moved back up, we've traded below this weekly high bottom there to that lower bottom there. So we've traded down. This has moved back up just short of the 79% level and back to the weekly low over here. It's looking a little bit suspicious. Of that kind of price formation, which is opposite to what we're seeing on the other yen pairs. So it's going to be interesting to see what the BOJ does this week. Of course, if we're putting in a lower top up here based on the monthly, and we're going to get a long-term shift in trend, we've got plenty of time to get in for maybe a long-term move down. But it's worth understanding exactly, if we do start to see this shift, that it could be one of those opportune times to get short for quite a while. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, so at the moment, I'll just be waiting to see what the BOJ does. But taking, a very high level approach at the moment on the trend, that we could be forming a lower top on the monthly here, and we may form a lower top on the weekly. So to the weekly, back to the we could form a lower top here on the weekly as well, holding at this weekly level. So if we came back up this week and retested 154.54 and kind of rejected and held, you see it holding up intraday, that would be a great level to trade down from. All right, I just want to wrap up on gold. Haven't quite got to my outer parameters, but what has been happening on gold is putting a higher bottom to a higher top. This is pulling back, but I would watch now at this range. Out and look to the 79% level, which we're almost at. So 26.37. What happens at 26.37 this week? Is that level going to hold? I would still be watching this lower area of support on the range there, the weekly support at 26.02 this week. But certainly that 79% level stands out like a sore thumb at the moment, 26.37 for potential support. All right, we moved out of, what was it? We had this range here, which we've moved out of. Kind of in the middle of that range at the moment. Broke above, we're pulling back to 79% to put that kind of price action in, okay? So start monitoring 26.37. Does that start to hold today? Can you find an intraday reversal maybe to get long up from that area if it starts to hold? All right. So just be aware of, the FMC. Let's just go through the big news items. We've got the FMC on Thursday. We've got interest rate decision from the UK Thursday and Wednesday, CPI data. Okay. CPI data this evening from Canada. All right. Make sure you know where the big items are coming out. Other than that, you might find the market very range bound. And of course, we've got the BOJ interest rate decision press conference as well. Thursday, approximately 1:30 my time. So even though we're getting close to the holiday season, there are still some big news items coming out, but the trading volume may be low outside of those events. All right. Right, I'm going to leave it at that. I will be back tomorrow for the education lesson. But Steve, thanks for your comment there. He's just thanking for the analysis through the year. Thanks, Steve. Have a good Christmas period. And to everybody else, if you don't catch me tomorrow, have a great Christmas period. And I will be back, webinar tomorrow, but then I will be back, I believe, on the 7th of January. Okay. So if you want to join me tomorrow, head over to the webinar page link. It's just there. I will be doing a webinar on trade setups, limit order, and a support or resistance zone, covering that topic and looking at how you place those orders. So if you want to join me for that, that will be the last webinar from me this year until we get into 2025. All right, I'll wrap it up there. Thanks, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.